really positive, Mark Gahey, and they should be, shouldn't they, after taking a point off Liverpool? It hasn't happened very often at Selhurst Park.
Well, no, it hasn't, but that's 5 draws in the last 6 games. They just need to start taking a few more risks, turning those draws into wins, and it'll all be rosy at Crystal Palace. I thought it was a really nice interview he gave, and he showed a lot of confidence in his strikers. For me, Palace, they were slow to grow into each half, and that for me shows a lack of confidence, because once they did, they caused Liverpool problems, a lot of problems. If they can only start that way, the way they finish both halves, it'd be much more positive for them.
I'm pleased Will Zaha didn't play today. Honestly, the way Liverpool defended, and you felt that they could have had a special moment, someone like him could have unlocked the door. And I think with Liverpool right now, it's just that's pretty much the performance I expected from them. They're fragile, their confidence is extremely low, they're not playing with any real freedom right now. Clean sheet is obviously a plus, because when you concede 5 in midweek, you're obviously going to have to really dig in and get something out of it. But it's tough times at the moment, and they've got to dig in and get performances. I wouldn't say it's a point game, because when you look at the teams around them, like at Spurs, would think that was a good result for us today. Because I think probably they thought Liverpool might have got 3 points today. But right now, it's just about slowly building that confidence back again.
Do you think Palace have missed an opportunity then, based on that?
I think Patrick Vieira would be delighted with a point. You'd always take a point against a Liverpool side, but it can go there and hurt you, because you knew as well that they might come down there, they're wounded. But I think that was probably a fair result. Liverpool had a spell in the first 15 minutes of the second half. It looked like they might get a bit better, but then it sort of petered out a little bit, had the odd chance here and there. But they didn't really do enough. They didn't do enough, and right now that's just where they're at. You know, there has to be, we talk about in the summer, there has to be changes, but when you can't worry about that. You just have to think, how can we try and get in that Champions League this season? They still have a great chance. It's a lot of games to play, lots of points to play for, and I think once they almost get through this little bit of spell and start to build again, I do believe they will get better as the season goes on.
You think Mateta is the right option right now in the continued absence of Will Zaha?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think he brings a physical presence. He unsettles defenders. Sometimes he can be a little bit raw and a bit erratic with his finishing, but that will come in time. Like we heard Mark Gahey say, he has got confidence in him. But without doubt, Wilfried Zaha is that missing link for Crystal Palace, and that an enigma that they really need to pull away from any danger they're in.
When you look at the quality they have, though, Glenn, you know, you look at Elise today, I thought was the best player on the pitch, certainly for Palace, and they have Zaha when he plays. The quality, that as a striker, someone yourself that could just used to love little chances, half chances like they make. You just need someone that's just going to put the ball in the back of net, it feels like.
Yeah, but they're hard to come by, huh? I mean, we look that there's been a resurrection of the number 9 in the Premier League, hasn't there? But Crystal Palace haven't got one really. Mateta, like I say, he'll rough people up and he'll get in between the sticks, but he just lacks that, probably a little bit of finesse, I think. And like you say, Crystal Palace will always create chances with likes of Eze, Elise and Zaha when he's fit. They just need that man that's clinical in the middle to be able to put those chances away.
This sums it up, doesn't it, really? This analysis that we're showing, it's bits and pieces. Their expected goals figure, Liverpool, was the lowest they've had this season. It's under 1 tonight.
But that's what, when you've suffered like that, such a humbling defeat, everybody's talking about you in the eye of the storm. I never for 1 second expected Liverpool to come out all guns blazing, playing with a bit of style and flair. It was never going to happen today. It felt that if they were going to win, it was like a scruffy 1-0 or something to go their way. You looked at the midfield that they started with, you know, with Keita, Henderson, Milner. There's not really anybody that's going to conjure up something special, a clever pass. It wasn't that kind of game. As the game went on, you're just hoping that Salah might produce something magic, but it wasn't to be. They weren't at their best, Liverpool, and it pretty much sums up the whole season for them.
They were, go on, Glenn.
So I was just going to say, I think you looked at the substitute bench, and they didn't really have too much firepower. He brought obviously Firmino on and Harvey Elliott, and they didn't have the impact Jurgen Klopp wanted, did they? And that's when you do miss the likes.
He brings on Fabinho for Trent, who you think, well, Trent might be able to cross, do something. Unless he's got a little injury which we don't know of. He's maybe a player that can unlock a door of a cross. But that's the problems they have right now. You know, Trent in the first half a couple of times defensively was so poor. You know, he got caught out for the chance earlier on with Mateta, and then also played a square pass that could have cost his team. They're not, and it's to a man right now. You know, they miss Konate, I think, defensively. But the good news is, and I'm sure that Jurgen Klopp would talk about it, is the 3 clean sheets in the Premier League. That's so important. They are a better side with Virgil van Dijk. He's not at the level that he was of the last few years, but that will come. He needs games and confidence.
And you leave with something, not what you wanted, but a point and a clean sheet. What did you make of it overall?
Again, I like the start of the game. We're really there. The dynamic was good. The passes were good. In the end, because we didn't threat them in behind enough, So we have to play in between the lines, and they were super aggressive. We lost balls, but they won balls as well, and then they had their moments, but in the end they had no shot on target. I learned tonight that a shot on when they hit the crossbar doesn't count as a shot on target. But okay, they had that, obviously. I think we had 3-4, nobody will ever know where the ball from Trent, the free kick, will go.
Good idea.
It was a good idea, in the end, we defended ourselves. That can happen. But the crossbar from Mo, the header from Diogo, and then the late in the game, Cody's situation. So actually, I know, again, nobody wants to hear that. Very typical game at Crystal Palace. The big difference for us is that usually we score 1 or 2 from the chances we have. We didn't do that tonight, and that's then the thing. And so it's a long game in a then good atmosphere. I think in the beginning we killed the atmosphere with the way we played, and people were not really happy.
Did you almost feel like you invited them a bit into that? Certainly the first half with just a few sloppy passes.
Yeah,
you had a good grip, and then you didn't all of a sudden.
Yeah. But exactly. So look, when football is predictable, it means then it's easier to defend, and for being unpredictable, you need different movements, and this is one that we have to offer really in behind the line as well, because we had these situations, but there we were all coming to get on the ball, and so it was always in the area, like in a midfield zone area, and there were too many situations, and then we gave balls away, but they were really aggressive and won balls as well in situations, and then they had their counter-attacking moments, which we defended then well. I think in the first half we had 2 situations where it looked dangerous, didn't become really dangerous, when we lose twice the ball, or one we lose the ball and one we in our box pretty much, and one we lose the challenge, but then we can defend it. So that's just, you feel something is not right. But in the end, how I said, it's a way point, and it's okay. It's not brilliant, but it's okay.
What could you have done to have that threat in behind? Because you mentioned that a couple of times. Is that different movements? Are you missing Nunes? I don't know.
Yeah. In moments like this, of course, but we can play that without him. And then we have Diogo on the pitch, who is a different kind of player, who is good in between the lines as well, but can be the threat in behind, but didn't play for a long time, stuff like this. I told him, feel free. So it's like how you feel. And when Mo and Diogo and Cody are dropping, then Diogo, for example, has to be the one for going behind. But the first diagonal ball from Trent, I think, didn't work out, was out throwing for them. And I think the first ball in behind was not good as well. In that moment, we didn't switch the sides anymore, and we didn't play the balls in behind anymore. So that makes no sense. But it's all, I also saw all these things before in my life, and so then you have to make sure that you don't concede, and we did that, and the 3-2 against Real Madrid was obviously good for absolutely nothing, but at least we could prepare for tonight, because we had 2 free kicks in similar situations. The setup was much better, so nothing happened there. So, from here we go.
What part did the Real Madrid game play in tonight? You look like a team recovering a little bit, or not?
No, if then physical. It's like, believe me, it's a massive difference, and everybody will tell you that. If you have these situations, it's not now a big problem, but everybody has that. If you have 3 games in a week or 2 games, is a big difference, but that's the only impact. They didn't see anything from playing wise or whatever. It's like that's a completely different game. So they have a different style. Everything is different, and so no, I didn't see massive influence from that. But how I said, if we score 1, we go home, win 1-0. Like in the last few years, we were up 1-0 with a set piece in a super difficult game. I can imagine. I can remember standing exactly in this room probably and talking about that difficult game. But we won it 2-0 because we won from a set piece and the other one from a counter attack. See you later, and that didn't work out tonight. But yeah. The rest is something we can work with.
And, I mean, don't think it helps to name names, but just a few individuals, guys who have run through brick walls for the club, looking a bit fragile tonight with their performances.
I didn't see that. What do you mean?
Oh, Keita, maybe Trent, both subbed.
Naby had an early yellow card, and then it's difficult. So we thought about, do we have to take him off earlier? And what was the second one?
I said Trent.
Trent plays all the games, so that makes it really tricky. So I didn't take him off because he was bad or whatever. So he's always good for a cross, for a pass, for whatever. But he plays all the games, and that's why we had to change him.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So they climb one place to 7th place, still 6 points outside those top 4 places, the Champions League places. It does feel like that is a realistic challenge. Back-to-back wins before tonight, forgetting what happened against Real Madrid. But what do you see when you watch Liverpool, Glenn, right now? Do you see a fragility? Do you see a team that's almost finding its way game by game?
Yes, and I think that showed with some of their passing first half. I think it was sloppy, and I thought they brought a lot of pressure on themselves. But just going back to what Jurgen Klopp said there about obviously having Jota and Gakpo that come towards the ball, and obviously that does, I will admit, that does suit Crystal Palace because all the players in front of you. If he did have somebody running beyond, my question will be, and it probably goes back to Jamie's point of the midfield three of Milner, Keita and Henderson, who is going to get their head up? Apart from Trent in that whole 11, who's going to get their head up and play that through ball?
It's true, but you could also go back and say, well, they've won Champions Leagues and they've won Premier Leagues with that midfield as well. So they've never really had anybody that, and it's been I think Liverpool fans...
They would have Bobby sitting in...
Yeah, for me, they would come and drop and play that ball,
yeah.
and that's what you're going to hope like Gakpo can be that player. But it is a problem, and it will... But right now, you do focus on these little details that have been going wrong, and you look at the age of the midfield, and it isn't always ideal, and that's why you're trying to bring in players to freshen up. I think Liverpool's season is going to almost ride on these next 2 games. I think they've got fixtures with Wolves and Manchester United. When you identify games as a Liverpool player, they're the ones that can determine the season, especially when you're in a situation like you are, where you're a little bit fragile. Everything can turn in its head if they win on March the 5th and win, obviously in midweek against Wolves. They're the games that can define seasons. All of a sudden, top 4 goes into, becomes a realistic ambition, which I still think they can.
Win those 2, they're in a happy place, aren't they?
Exactly, but they've got to win these next 2 games. They're home games. They've got to find that belief and confidence at home, because a little bit would have been knocked away with that midweek performance, and the fans have got to stay with them, which they always do there. But they're games that I really do believe that will make all the difference, because they've got to build that confidence up. The end of the season, and the players you want to bring in and identify will take care of themselves. Right now, this squad is still capable. You can't get to a situation where you played every single game last year, get to the cup finals that you got to, and be involved in every competition, and all of a sudden become a bad side. They're damaged, the confidence is low, but I still think they're capable of getting that top 4 with that squad.
But surely this form now and this season impacts who you can bring in the summer?
I've heard that said a lot. I'm probably, because I'm proud of the Liverpool heritage and everything, that they will still get the best, even if they don't get top 4. I've seen it with clubs before where they didn't get in the Champions League, they can't get this player. They still do. Manchester United have never really had that problem buying the big players when they weren't competing. But Manchester United have had to spend.
Will Liverpool spend?
I think they will. I think the owners will. I think they know what they need to do. I genuinely believe that. And if Jurgen Klopp, he didn't believe it, he wouldn't stay there either. And I think there will be, whether it's these owners or investments, they get a lot of stick, the owners, but they've backed the manager as well. And he knows that. He's never once come out and complained about the players that he's bought. What you might say is, maybe have they bought players that they really need? Now, did they really need Cody Gakpo right now?
I'm not saying that they haven't spent. They're just not massive spenders, let's say. They're not in a Manchester United's league, or...
Because not different state-owned clubs. Yeah. It's hard, it's going to be hard to compete with Newcastle once they get through their financial situation. But when you're a club, the players will always want to come there. They'll still be able to get the best. There's still talk, and I believe that the players that might come in, Jude Bellingham, he will look at Liverpool and he'll look at Klopp as a viable option because of what it will bring and how much he can improve. It's not going to be easy signing, because every club wants him, but that's the sort of player that you've got to be looking for. If you want to improve and start challenging again, and as low as it's been for Liverpool at times, you're never that far away. You're only 1 or 2 players away. You look at what Manchester United have done all of a sudden with Ten Hag. He's brought in a couple of players that all of a sudden there's a bit of belief again, and now they're flying high. And I still believe with Liverpool, a couple of players, Fabinho looks like he's just, for some reason, he's 29 still. He looks like he's gone over the edge. Maybe they need to find a young defensive midfield player, find someone to fill that void. But I still feel Liverpool will. I think they're still getting the top 4, and I also believe that next year they'll be challenging again.
And perhaps Arsenal, the best example of that, Glenn. 5th last season, and a couple of signings, Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, and suddenly they're flying high at the top of the league. Yeah,
I think it's clubs in completely different situations. Arsenal has been a project, and that project's working out really well for them. Liverpool have been a top team. They've won European Cups, they've won the Premier League. They're trying to transition at the top, which I think everyone can see it's a very difficult thing.